captain has turned on the seatbelt light. Please take your seat and fasten your seatbelts. Thank you.
Meet John, and Paul, and George, and Ringo. No relation to those other guys. None of these guys can sing, except Ringo. John, Paul, George, and Ringo work at a company called Walrus Incorporated. They make widgets for marine mammals. Simon is a technical writer who also works at Walrus Incorporated. He uses MadCap to create his documentation. Oh, I almost forgot. John has a personal assistant named Yoko. Paul and Yoko don't get along. It's a long story. Anyway, John, Paul, George, and Ringo are all subject matter experts at Walrus Incorporated, and Simon relies on information from each of them to complete his documentation. To do this, John, Paul, George, and Ringo each use MadCap Contributor, which is a light authoring tool that's easy to use and integrates seamlessly with Flare. Here's how they do it. Periodically, John creates new content and sends it to Simon. But Simon is kind of particular, and he wants these new documents to have certain parts in a certain order, and he wants them to look a certain way. That's just how technical writers are. So using Flare, Simon creates a thing called a contribution template and sends it to John, who saves the file somewhere on his computer. Then, whenever John needs to create a new document to send to Simon, he opens Contributor. He selects File, New. In the New Document dialog, he selects New from Existing and navigates to the contribution template file that he saved on his computer. He gives the new document a name and clicks OK. The document starts out as an exact copy of the one from Simon's template. John clicks in the editor to add, remove, and change content. Some of the most common things are typing text, inserting images, and creating tables. Now, there are lots and lots of other bells and whistles throughout Contributor that John could add, but as Yoko often tells John, sometimes all a person really needs is 2 bells and 1 whistle. Yoko is kind of weird like that. One other thing that John likes to do is make the document look good. He could use a bunch of the options in the Home ribbon to do stuff like make things bold, add color, and align content. But Simon told John that it's way better to use pre-designed styles than to just start clicking different formatting buttons. So when Simon initially created the contribution template, he included a few styles, and he and John agreed on which ones to use for different things. These styles help to keep everything consistent and looking nifty. They also help prevent Simon from bursting a blood vessel in his head. So whenever John needs to apply a style to a heading or paragraph, he does this. And whenever he needs to apply a style to selected text in a heading or paragraph, he does this. And whenever he needs to apply a style to a table, he does this. In addition to all of that, sometimes John just wants to add comments in the document. That way, Simon can see this extra information without it being part of the main document content. To add a comment, John opens the Review ribbon, clicks on the content where he wants to add a comment, selects Insert Annotation, and types away. When he's all done, John saves the document and clicks this button to send it to Simon. Then there's Paul. Now, Paul does pretty much all of the same things that John does, creating new documents and sending them to Simon. But every once in a while, he also uses Contributor to create standalone documents for his own use. He doesn't share them with others, especially not Yoko. To create these documents, he selects File, New. Then he clicks New from Template and chooses the Document Factory template. He gives it a name and clicks OK. Then he types away. And then just to show off, he selects File, Save, Save To, and he saves the document as a PDF file. And then there's George. Now, George uses Contributor a bit differently. He doesn't use it to create new documents. Instead, Simon creates documents in Flare and then sends them to George so he can review them. When this happens, George receives an FLTREV file. It might have a weird name, but it's simply a package that contains multiple documents that Simon wants George to look at and edit. It's like a sitar. It sounds weird, but in the end, it's really just another guitar. So when George opens this package in Contributor, he sees all the documents in it. They're listed at the bottom of the interface, and one at a time, he double-clicks each document to open them. Then he edits the content and sometimes also inserts comments, just like John and Paul do in their contribution documents. His edits are all automatically tracked so that Simon knows exactly what was done. When George is all done, he clicks Return to Sender to email the package back to Simon. And finally, we have Ringo. So what does Ringo do? Well, he also reviews documents like George does, but Ringo uses Contributor in its free annotation-only mode. That means he's not allowed to edit any of the documents. He's only allowed to insert comments. But that's okay, because Ringo has spelling issues anyway. So then there's Simon, sitting far away at his desk down in Storage B. He receives all of these documents from John, Paul, George, and Ringo. And because Contributor works seamlessly with Flare, Simon is able to easily incorporate all of this stuff into his other documentation. It simply works better than trying to use Word or Post-its or telepathy. And that's pretty much it. That's how Contributor works. And that's how Simon gets by with a little help from his friends.